Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Day 4 of the World Road Congress and our keynote sessions. It's a pleasure to have you back with us today. Today we have 3 excellent keynote speakers ready to share their ideas and insight with you all. Our first speaker for today is Mr. JEAN-LUC di PAOLA-GALLONI. Mr. PAOLA-GALLONI is a Group Corporate Vice President, Sustainable Development and External Affairs at VALEO, joined VALEO in 2007, serving as Vice Chairman since 2009 for the European Road Transport Research Advisory Council. Jean-Luc is also a member of the board of its CPPP, European Green Vehicle Initiative. In 2018, he was elected president of Artemis IA, the European association representing the embedded systems industry and research actors in the ESA, joint undertaking for which he is the chairman of the private members board. Additionally, he is representing the VALEO Group in the board of CLEPA, the European Association of Automotive Suppliers, since July 2018. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me welcoming Mr. PAOLA-GALLONI to the stage.
Very good afternoon. Excellencies, honorable ministers, directors, it's a great pleasure to be here. I want to thank the very kind invitation of President Van Roten and Mr. Maljac. It's a real pleasure to be here in this distinguished venue as the World Road Congress, and I was asked, and I'm very happy to deliver it, what is the vision for the roads seen from automotive industry and particularly from tier 1 suppliers like VALEO. Since we are a technology world supplier, very, I would say, embedded in electrification and progressive autonomy, as you will see. So just that you see from which perspective I speak, just a few slides on what is VALEO for the one who are not so familiar with the automotive industry per se. We're almost a 20 billion euro company. We're well above more than 100,000 employees deployed in more than 30 countries with many production sites and many research development sites. We are a very research-intensive company. We are simply the most research-oriented company in France, as we are the first patent depository, all sectors of economy put together for our country. And we are in the top 20 most innovative European company. All our customers are car, bus, trucks, vehicles manufacturers. It's a pleasure to let the local authorities know that here we supply particularly many new buses that are deployed in United Arab Emirates. But as classical original equipment manufacturers are still our main clients, you will see that we need to go for new clients that are not necessarily industrial brand groups, but just platforms, such as Uber, worldwide, American, Ola in India, Didi in China, and so on and so forth. As I was saying, we are a very innovative company because doing research and innovation is fine, but if you don't sell it, what for? More than half of our products are indeed innovative. It means that we change our catalog of more than half of our products every 3 years. You don't have many businesses where you need to reshuffle at such speed all your technology innovation. And you see that when I was saying that our customers are evolving, also our products, we're still an industrial, that is to say a physical product-oriented company, but already, as I speak, we have already 1 billion, a 20th of our turnover, that will be provided just by cyber-physical and related to artificial intelligence software solutions. So you see that I'm already setting up the context where companies that are industrial companies in automotive sector are bringing new business models on the table in cyber-physical systems. And this order intake is particularly important for the first segment of vehicles that will be clearly the first deployed autonomous vehicles on the roads, which will be the robotaxi. And we work as a company as an integrated model. We are world leader in wiping solutions, in lighting solution. We have more than 25% of the market. Basically, 1 vehicle out of 4 has either our rear or front lights. And we also are in thermal systems, whether it is thermal related to powertrain or thermal when you have in mind that we're talking about comfort of climate control. And then obviously, since we are a player in electrification, we are simply the most electrified-oriented company in powertrain. We will devote most of our technology in powertrain to electric and hybrid vehicles worldwide. And particularly, we're extremely big in the first electric vehicle market, which, as you know, is currently China. So the product portfolio of electrification, it will be for all mobility modes. You see that for us, we consider that 100% electric vehicle is manageable, particularly with low voltage in an affordable way. Let me remind that there are at least 4 or 5 CEOs of our customers that have predicted by the next 3 years the cost of a full electric powertrain will be as much and not more expensive than an internal combustion engine. So clearly, what we were betting 10 years ago is coming finally to an achievement in the next years to come. Not in 10, 15, but just in the next 2, 3 years. And then we made a joint venture. We were not all alone, and with Siemens, we addressed the high voltage for full propulsion systems for more than 300 kilowatts. But also we believe that for the time being, we can hybridize the internal combustion engine fleets. And indeed, as progressive full electrified vehicles will be introduced, but that will remain still a limited percentage of the fleets, there will be a massification of gradual electrification for internal combustion engine. And this is the segmentation of hybrids. And we believe in both low voltage and high voltage, and also in engine optimization, which is also a reduction of CO2 emission and fuel consumption on combustion engine. We also think that we need to address light urban mobility. You see me dressed up as an Indian. For India, which is a huge market, the biggest chunk of vehicle market are not cars, are not trucks, but they are the tuk-tuk, the 2, the 3, the light four-wheelers. 40 million every year of those vehicles are sold in a country like India. So if you don't address the electrification of those vehicles, you're just missing the point when you want to talk about CO2 reduction and life cycle assessment betterment. So we do believe that also for those type of vehicles, low voltage and full electrification will be affordable. And we do believe that a revolution is coming not just by electrification, but it will be brought by digitalization. And so, indeed, we are getting ourselves ready to have a lower volume of vehicles on the roads, and where we will have new solutions, such as car share, such as fleet management services, connected car solutions. Also, we are in the real time with our sensors on air quality measurements. So you see that a lot of product portfolio will be devoted not just for brands and vehicles, but also for city management and road operators. Indeed, I'm a strong believer in collaborative research. As my kind lady who introduced my titles, I am responsible at different layers within a European framework on these very good, I would say, collaborative packages that exist in Europe. And they are not limited just for Europe. They are also embarking several countries in the world from which European Union is investing on different research projects. Whether it is the official platform that I co-chair, European Road Transport Advisory Council, or the European Green Vehicle Initiative, which is a public-private partnership that has funded roughly €1 billion for electrification, and you, dear partners of road operators, have been beneficiary, and we have selected many projects on road infrastructure for particularly electrification charging. But also, when I'm talking of digitalization, it's very important that programs such as joint undertaking and funding scheme on electronics and artificial intelligence are also funding projects on mobility. So clearly, I hope that I have convinced you that technology is shaping mobility and cities. This transforms infrastructure and foster mobility. So how to better collaborate with you that are mainly experts in infrastructure and constructions? Well, first of all, the third revolution after electrification, digitalization, will be clearly the progressive autonomy. Autonomous driving is accelerating. About 35% of new cars will be automated. They will have the function that doesn't need that they will be left alone to run fully automated, but it means that technologically speaking, yes, the industry is ready to deliver such kind of vehicles. Connectivity is the catalyst, because autonomy without connectivity, it's not enough. So this is why we're a lot working with the telecom industry, and you know how it is important to both collaborate on G5 and 5G. Mobility experience will be the award, and interior sensing will equip about 20% of vehicle. So that means that interior comfort and intuitive driving will be also the first level of introduction of this kind of semi-autonomous products. And as I was saying, electrification is really the new paradigm. So in mobility, we used to say in our industry that it is a bit of a Darwinian world. You see that we have everything from moving with your own feet up to any kind of vehicles. The mobility models are indeed moving, and from shared mobility and from individual driving, we will go more and more into mobility as a service. Now, even the acronym as MaaS is more and more employed. This maybe is the first impact that will interest the stakeholders of road like yourselves. You see that we have many different impacts coming just from the technology of the vehicle industries and the suppliers and the whole industrial supply chain. With self-automated parking, this is already a device that is fully deployed. Well, that changes what? It changes the fact that you can progressively remove all surface parking spots. This interests, I would say, even more than roads operator, the mayors themselves, because 30% of public space roads are occupied for parking. And if you're able to store more and more self-automated vehicles in dedicated parking spots, whether they are underneath the surface or in parking lots, well, you are saving a lot of road surface, and you can devote the surface for something else than just vehicles. But also, you see that with the digitalization, we will optimize the pickups, the deliveries for the last mile. We will have new intelligent traffic, which will make space more efficient. We will have increasing capacity. We will have different kind of, I would say, usage of prioritized surfaces. Clearly, the ones devoted to the charging of electrification will be hotspots and will be extremely important, that we need to build more and more of those charging stations. But indeed, this will bring new multiple scenarios in the roads. And this is interesting because smart roads means that we participate to build smart cities. And I know how much this has been a huge subject, including here in this region of the world where United Arab Emirates have shown many projects on smart cities. And you see that there will be less private cars and more shuttles in cities. And you see that many studies show that by 2030, there will be a lot of change of the vehicles. It doesn't mean that you will have such an increase of non-road vehicles. You see that train will be pretty much stable, but you will see that robotaxi and automated vehicle shuttle, which will be a little bigger than taxi in capacity, will really be the big new venue. Why? Because autonomous vehicles will first be introduced for dedicated circuits, for dedicated points A to B, which will be the safest paradigm of trajectory where autonomy will be feasible, where autonomy will be safe. And this will decrease the amounts of private cars. So, what do we need to transform infrastructure to foster mobility? And that would be probably the challenges I would like to propose and to share together with you, because just our industry alone cannot change the paradigm of mobility without the road players, the road stakeholders. Clearly, backbone of urban mobility system, we need road and infrastructure redesign to support the new mobility use case. We need to have intelligent road infrastructure to support higher connectivity needs. This is very clear when we are moving into devices that need a much more intensive electricity consumption, and we clearly need to embark all the expertise of the energy sector. Road infrastructure and renewed space allocation will need to be rethought within the cities, and this will be very interesting. So we will have to use new interfaces, new analytics on digital, new rolling stocks, new pieces and models of infrastructure. And for that, we will need to use more data, more connectivity for a need of interface between intelligent physical infrastructure and cyber-physical usage. There are some risks, and I'm not denying. There is a risk of central cloud saturation. This is something that we need to clearly address from what infrastructure need in terms of data, from what the vehicle need in terms of data. That's what we call in our industry the vehicle to X, the vehicle to vehicle. There will be a risk of cellular network saturation. as we expect to have a multiplier of nothing less than 100 million connected cars worldwide. But on the other hand, if we're able to progressively solve and accepting that there will be some bugs, that there will be some issues, there are some clear opportunities on the long run. We will have local data processing, we will have new business models where clearly there will be new shifting of also jobs, and we will have a much better mobility overall. So what we need is to distribute a certain intelligence in the infrastructure with several use cases for smart mobility. And this is why collaborative research projects and user cases are so important. I can name, like, for example, 3 levels: smart intersection, where pedestrian detection collision avoidance can be helped through sensors on vehicles that we, for example, like us, we are the biggest sensors producer as I speak right now. Smart infrastructure for teleoperation, road information, and platooning. And indeed, we need, in order to move towards smart cities, to have vehicles connected with city infrastructure to reduce pollution, congestion, and to have a better management of multimodal traffic and a better energy efficiency. We also need to rethink the space allocation and, related to infrastructure, to foster intermodality, to facilitate commuting, and to avoid at maximum collision. This is the real reason why autonomy is unstoppable, because even if, as I speak, we haven't solved the issue when a vehicle autonomous needs to save the people inside the car or bump into the people that are pedestrian, if I compare to that kind of very rare use case, if I compare to countries like Vietnam that have the worst fatalities in roads, well, for sure, autonomy will reduce by 95% all the injuries, all the fatalities, which brings business models that are not only life-saving, but they are also GDP-saving. Do we have in mind that a country like Indonesia is losing 10% of its GDP just because of congestion of huge cities such as Jakarta? We need to rethink parking. This is very important. It is really the kind of example like where technology brings a whole remodeling of road space. How to collaborate? Well, we need to speak the same language to build ecosystem. It's not easy, and I would reckon that also many of my colleagues that are mainly mechatronic, electronic, software engineers have not been the best partners to speak with road infrastructure construction colleagues. But we need to build this ecosystem. We need to test use cases. We need to maximize whatever kind of projects that can be done, cross-border, cross-cities, internationally. And we need to find forms of new financing. And I know what I say when I address the finance issue to infrastructure people. Well, this is what I have tried modestly to do within the platforms that I co-lead at European level, but also having some experiences like we have deployed in South Korea, in Japan, in China, in the US. And we need to clearly work towards a co-shared research roadmap where it's not just one kind of theme of people, just the vehicle manufacturer, just the vehicle suppliers, the research provider, the labs, the university. No, it's all together. And indeed, in AirTrack, we do value an association like FEARL that is bringing the infrastructure coming from the road. And we need to build this ecosystem to try the use cases. And there we also need the authorities, whether they are local, whether they are national, whether they are supranational. This is why venues like World Road Congress are so important. This is why also sitting, as I do, in the Corporate Partnership Board of the Permanent International Transport Forum, where more than 60 transport ministers are meeting all the time together, it is very important for us. And we also need to embark the telecom players, the other mobility players, the disruptors, including the startups, the SMEs. And we need to find the hybrid financing models. It is complicated. We need to finance the evolution of road infrastructure from a global perspective. And this is not easy. We need to explore new options to finance road evolution and its environmental impact through road charging. And clearly, we need to attract new investors. To me, I think it's very important that insurance and pension funds really need to become the co-investors of the future for the infrastructure. Because as you know, technology readiness is there, but the biggest effort has to be deployed in infrastructure, and we need to prevent and prepare the road infrastructure rather than always using the paradigm on just repairing. And I have in mind, when I'm saying that, what has happened in the bridge of Genoa, as you know, not so long ago. So the final takeaway would be that technology is shifting, mobility partners are evolving, infrastructure certainly needs to adapt, smart infrastructure will enable new mobility, and maturity of solution and financing should be approached on a use case mode. So this was my presentation. I hope I showed a helping hand versus the road community and stakeholders, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paola-Galloni, for that excellent presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Mr. Jesus Sancho. Mr. Jesus Sancho is the CEO for ACCIONA in the Middle East, and he is 12 years in the Middle East and 8 years leading ACCIONA. In the Middle East, where ACCIONA grown to a turnover of more than $700 million and more than 2,500 employees in the GCC, with iconic projects designed and built such as Dubai RTA Route 2020 Red Line Metro Extension, due to be delivered next year, the 800 megawatt photovoltaic solar plant for DIWA, second largest in the world by power output, several very large seawater desalination plants by reverse osmosis technology in the UAE, Fujairah and Jebel Ali, and 4 in Saudi Arabia. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Mr. Sancho to deliver his keynote speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Your Excellencies, ministers from around the world, the organization by PRC, and of course, all of the sponsors that have made possible this Abu Dhabi World Road Congress 2019. Well, thank you for having ACCIONA. ACCIONA, very briefly, is one of the largest infrastructure developers, designers, builders, and operation and maintenance companies in Spain. We're part of the selective IBEX 35. And I would like to I was impressed by the presentation of my colleague, Dr. JEAN-LUC. It was a brilliant presentation and insight on the what's coming up on smart mobility. And it has a common denominator with what I am going to speak today, because Dr. JEAN-LUC was speaking on what's on top of the roads, smart mobility, vehicles, and I'm going to speak about the roads themselves as the enabling mechanisms that we have since a very long time. So something that the great majority of us may not think every day when we travel the roads. Very sure it happens as well in the UAE, but certainly in Europe. Some of the roads that we travel today are not different, too much different from what happened 2,000 years ago. So it's really humbling to see, to think, who were the people going in the same route that I'm coming today? Where were they going? What were they doing? But basically, the fact is that the roads back then served exactly the same purpose as the roads today, basically to connect people, offering them freedom and freedom of movement and basically choices, okay? And so 2,000 years later, we're pretty much, the importance of roads has not decreased at all. Well, today we live in our life in the road, whether we like it or not. From the moment our mothers went to the hospital to give us birth, our first road trip as young people, our first job interview, or even coming to this magnificent World Road Congress in Abu Dhabi, we used probably the road to come here. And we don't pay much attention to the roads because it's part of a day-to-day life. Same as our phones, the availability of water, potable water, or electricity. However, we all came to this Congress, and we all have to think, what is really what we have with these roads today, nowadays? It's like this quote from Sarah Owen-Jewett: "The road was new to me, as roads always are, going back." So you go and have to come back, and it looks like a different road. So there's relevance, it has only, the relevance for roads has only increased with time, okay? Just looking at some interesting figures, we can say that nowadays, the estimated global road infrastructure investment to cover the world's needs up to 2040 is $1.3 trillion per year in the world. However, this rate of return, what you really affect the economy is double-fold. It's 2 times what you invest in roads. On the downside, yes, there's the transport by road accounts for almost 20% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So there is an impact to economy, society, and the environment, which is obvious, but there is still room for both investors, as developers, and contractors to boost the betterment effects that roads have on those three areas. I mean, the economy, society, and the environment. So we have to do things differently. I also would like to quote what Dr. Jean-Luc said before. I was impressed with those 40 million tuk-tuks sold a year, but basically he was making a call, or that's what I understood, on joining hands together. We have to do something about it. It's not just one sector. We will see later on, he's in the automotive sector and smart mobility. We are in the infrastructure construction. So one sector alone cannot do any change. We have to really all make conscious that in every aspect, we have to make a change. So about the signals from the investors, this concept may be coupled with a need from investors. Investors, what are they looking for? They're looking for several criteria. For example, having long-term sustainable investments, that's always wanted, of course. They need a strong regulatory framework. They need a lot of experienced companies that can deliver up to the expectations. And basically, they need to create value for the economy, the society, and the environment. Well, good news is roads, something that we get for granted pretty much all of us, they can comply with these three goals for investors. And that's why we have this huge amount of money invested worldwide. But now we come to the part of my presentation where I'm trying to ring a conscious to say, how will investors be able to determine exactly which projects fulfill this goal and which ones don't? Well, some of you, or I would say most of you, because this is a pretty new term that I think from now, in the next few years, we will start hearing this more and more, is the European Union taxonomy. What's taxonomy? Taxonomy is a tool, it's just a tool, it's a science of classifying. We are classified as Homo sapiens. But taxonomy, you can classify many things. So what European Union taxonomy is aiming at this moment is to create a mindset, is sectors where if you fulfill and think and have in mind, wherever you approach in your sector, whatever it is, the following contribution objectives, then you are complying with this European Union taxonomy. We're talking about climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, sustainable use and protection of water and the marine resources, transition to a circular economy means recycling, waste prevention and recycling, pollution prevention and control, and protection of healthy ecosystems. So what are the benefits? What are the benefits to try to embrace, which is the message, embrace this European Union taxonomy? Well, our company is greatly concerned about sustainability. Because of that, we know there are mechanisms that are aimed to help investors, we are also investors, to identify sustainable investments. And let's focus on those. That's what we expect from public sector as well, and private investors. A recent example of the new European taxonomy for sustainable activities. The taxonomy helps to identify 6 environmental objectives, as we said before, okay? And we will, if we do the European taxonomy, we will comply with the commitment with the Paris Agreement. We will save time and money through the use of a clear and simple methodology to assess your investments. We will provide the tools needed for choosing between different investment styles while putting environmental data in investment context. And for companies and investors, it will also help them avoid unpleasant surprises that may result in threats to their reputation. In our opinion, most importantly, the key is to keep the conversation going. We really have to focus and keep talking about what can I do as an investor, as a company, to select properly those projects that will the European Union classify in this taxonomy as environmental compliant. How can I apply it? Okay. Well, basically, it's some few next simple steps. You have had identify eligible activities. For each activity, identify, assess if it meets the relevant criteria that we saw before, conduct a due diligence to avoid violation of the minimum safeguards, and calculate the alignment of this investment with the taxonomy. At the end of this simple process, you will have a clear idea on what activities your investment portfolio qualify as sustainable. So we are going to do quite, example. For example, one way of doing it is you calculate the weight of eligible activities in the company's total revenue. And then from there, if you have different verticals, you multiply that proportion into each of the company's weight in your investment portfolio. And you will get a number which is actually your green equity fund or taxonomy eligible amount. If we look at ourselves as a company, ACCIONA, as a practical example, we have done this exercise at ACCIONA. The results are very positive, and following this criteria, we have found almost 70% of our revenue comes from taxonomy-eligible business activities, 69%. When we now look at the EBITDA, we talk about 92% within ACCIONA. But to me, this is the best figure we have. Whenever we invest our CapEx, it falls under European Union taxonomy under 99%. Every euro, dollar, dirhams that we are investing is in projects which are European Union taxonomy eligible. And this means a lot for our company, our efforts, to follow these sustainable development objectives will not go unnoticed. It will also mean that for whoever is building a portfolio with sustainable, responsible companies, it will be easier to select us. This is a call for the public authorities. Sometimes it says price is king. Price is king, but I think in the future will not be only price. Sustainable and taxonomy companies, we believe the message should be taken into account to really, with all together, go towards this goal we have. So the new reality, what's the consequence for the future? If companies are not going to be evaluated by the sectors they operate, in our case, infrastructure development, on their commitment to sustainable development, we're in front of a new sector. Now, by using this tool, you can really, it doesn't matter, regardless the sector you're working, you can really contribute and be part of this sector, which really differentiates and is pushing towards the future that we all want and need. At this moment, we're proud to say that ACCIONA, being in the sector of construction, is, if not the only one of the few companies in the world that is carbon zero neutral emissions company, and it offsets each and every of the carbon dioxide that we produce since 2016, thanks to the fact that half of our company is ACCIONA Energía, which is 100% dedicated to renewable energy. So we like to say we're experts in designing a better planet. And well, this is just an example of one project we have in Norway that we are starting now. And this project is the Highway E6 in Norway, and the client is Nye Veier, the New Roads Public Authority of Norway. And they are and us together, because we're talking to each other, we're very much aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 goals established in 2017, and these are setting the goals for the future. So basically, for example, the goal number one, is on safety. Safety, we try to go for 0 accidents, Goal number 2 is trying to minimize the interaction and the digitalization of our projects. We use BIM. BIM is a building interface modeling, VDC, virtual design construction. We do a lot of ICE sessions. ICE is in case of emergency sessions. You know, we do the latest and the greatest technology that we can use for building a road. We have, we want to minimize the inconvenience that we may cause to all the road users during the construction. Obviously, this road is being built on top of, or to substitute several roads which are already existing with traffic. So some interaction will be there, but the goal is to minimize it by choosing the right track and minimizing the effect on the emissions and the agriculture areas, you know. So to minimize the greenhouse gas emissions, you can do many things which we are implementing in that project. We use composite materials. We use conveyor belts because it's 8 kilometers, with 23 kilometers, 8 of them are a tunnel. So we use conveyor belts for the waste extraction inside the tunnel. This really cuts the CO2 emissions. We use the smart lighting in the tunnel and integrate it with renewable energies. So, of course, there will be some kind of utilization of existing agriculture areas, but as I said before, with the right track and really speaking to the community and all the stakeholders, we shall minimize the effect. Therefore, you know, I think the message is already set. There is a new sector on the way. The companies is not industrial, water, utilities, construction, automotive. It's the sector of the European Union taxonomy. Whatever you do, regardless you are, please join us and be conscious that this is the way we can all help to design a better planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sancho. It was a pleasure to hear your insights. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our third and final keynote speaker of the day is Mr. ANDRÉ BROTO. Mr. BROTO is the Strategy Director of VINCI Autoroutes since 2011, as well as the President Advisor. He participated in the work of PAOLA-GALLONI, Chairman of the Committee Sustainable Mobility in Urban Areas, and Chairman of the French National Committee, and at URF, member of the think tank, and at IDRRIM, Chairman of the Prospective Committee, and of TIDE, member of the Scientific Council. It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. BROTO to the stage to deliver his keynote presentation.
Votre Excellence, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, les représentants des directions des routes, chers collègues de la IPCR, chers amis du monde de la route et plus généralement du monde des transports,
especially dear friends from the transport industry, I'm very happy to be in Abu Dhabi today, where VINCI has a strong presence. The previous speaker said that our companies are confronted with major challenges and governments are getting ready. Civil society is getting impatient. NGOs are demonstrating, and one question we have is, what are companies doing? Can they join forces? And why should companies get ready? How can we be mobilized? Is it what we call greenwashing or not? I will talk to you about a case of washing. Maybe VINCI for you is abstract and far away because of the diversity of our jobs. We are decentralized and all over the world. It's important to know this because for our key customers, for investors and banks, it is important to be decentralized. It's also very important for those young people we need to hire. As a group at VINCI, we are criticized, perceived approach, and criticized often. I will show you what VINCI is at large. But it's not enough. I will return to the major challenges we are confronted with. The first challenge is that the health of our planet, the energy transition, and the digital revolution will modify our lifestyles. It's very important for us because we build house buildings. It's going to modify and bring a revolution in our work practices, our lifestyles, and our mobility practice, and we'll have to adapt our habits in terms of digital. In this new world, everything will go through the prism for the end customer, end user. It will be regarded, in spite of all these turmoils. When we build a highway or road, we have to provide quality services to our customers. More and more customers expect a righteous behavior. Public opinion want to become the players of this new world. On one side, we don't have only the decision makers and the designers, and on the other side, the users. Everyone wants to be a stakeholder in the decision making on what is going to impact their job, their lives. So we need to have a compass on that sea of complexity, the vision and the meaning and the direction we want to give to our actions with three consequences. Our goal is our core business to build, to maintain, to manage cities which are more pleasant to live, but also more righteous, more efficient infrastructure, and more cost-effective in terms of natural resources, with a more human environment and less use of the non-renewable resources of our planet. Lastly, our performance must be global. On one side, we should not have economic performance, and on the other side, social, climatic, or environmental performance. There is global performance or no performance at all. I will return to global performance later. Let me introduce VINCI. We are a global player in terms of construction and concession, with a turnover of 43 billion and over 200,000 employees, with three divisions. One of these divisions is VINCI Autoroutes, operating 4,400 kilometers of highways in France. Then we have VINCI Airports, managing 45 airports across the world. VINCI Concession is the third sector, managing 3,500 kilometers of highways outside France and a number of railways. And also the contracting business involves three divisions. That is VINCI Energies, gathering 1,600 companies and 77,000 employees. Eurovia, gathering 420 road construction companies, 350 quarries, and finally VINCI Construction, gathering about 800 companies and 71,000 salariés. The employees of VINCI Construction are attending the World Conference. This is our presence across the world. We are multicultural, multi-local. We are becoming more and more global, and we are present in about 100 countries, and the short film of 6 minutes will summarize all this, and I'll get back to you to talk to you about this notion of global performance.
comment faisons-nous pour mobiliser?
So in terms of mobility, how do we mobilize the 200,000 employees? First of all, we have a long-term culture, and it is a model with two legs. One with concession and public service, and the second leg is contracting. One requires a lot of funds, a lot of investments. The other one does not need a lot of money, but requires a lot of brains and a lot of intelligence. That helps us to integrate into the building construction of projects and come up with solutions to meet customer expectations. Two examples, if it's a bridge connecting continental Greece with Peloponnese, and this bridge has been designed, funded, and built. It is on a seismic area in Greece, and it can be very dangerous in case of earthquake. So this bridge has been built. It shows now that in terms of concession, we are forced to take into consideration earthquakes, the funding and the perennity or the sustainability of the financial model. Second example, a highway between Tours and Bordeaux in France. It was opened in July of 2017. It's a line, it's a rail. It's concession for 64 years. What can we say at the global level when you design a transportation system for long-term use? We're going to run the risk of long-term through management, and we're going to take into consideration maintenance costs. We are going to optimize present costs and future costs. We're going to take into consideration earthquake. But we have integrated into this project the other societal challenges. We are proud to say that for these projects, not only we have approached all stakeholders, but also we have hired people that were previously excluded. Where does that culture come from? But when you have companies that have been operating highways like this one, some teams have been confronted with a lot of social expectations. Some 30 years ago, it was the protection of natural resources and biodiversity. 20 years ago, it was circular economy. 10 years ago, it was climate change. What about the teams in charge of these projects? They came up with proposals. They have suggested solutions, integrated these social expectations to achieve global performance. This culture of global performance has spread beyond the concession holders, beyond all entities of the group. And we have a lot of achievements presented on the French booth for Eurovia. They're building roads. The global performance consists in recycling material. You have a recycling station on the left side, and it leads to inventing 100% recyclable roads for Eurovia. It's also a type of road to capture the heat from the pavement to be reused for 6 cents. Another company, the role is to come up with solutions to have a better knowledge about our assets, to make a better use of tunnels and bridges. So they have a project called Full Beam for better management of VINCI Autoroutes. And on the French booth, you will be able to meet the teams of Cyclope to improve the safety of our drivers on our roads. We want to adopt a global approach that can be seen through the creation of a transformation think tank on the transformation of cities, or Leonard, which is an innovation platform. So Leonard and VINCI have been involved into a European bid for the future and construction of 1,000 kilometers of highway around Paris and concession for 10 and 30 years. And this consultation turned to urban planners and architects in order to get a vision, with a vision to create better mobility for people in 30 years and to cut down by factor of 2 the number of lanes for traffic. So that's a very good, that would be a good solution for Abu Dhabi or Dubai. VINCI Way is a system where global performance is at the center, at the heart of our culture, in the behavior of our teams, and because we understand the goals, because we need to do that to attract young workers, young people, and if we want to meet the expectations of the general public. Let me say a couple of words about PIARC. I want to thank you, and I want to thank the Arab Emirates for organizing this global Congress. I can see the quality of the work and the quality of the exposition and show. PIARC was created at a time where a lot of countries and road administration were at a linchpin of history, a linchpin time between roads designed for animal traction and roads that were reinvented to allow for automobile traffic. 1 century after that, we are all together again at a new linchpin where roads and streets have to reinvent themselves. The road and the final use of roads have to be cost-effective in fossil fuel and in non-renewable energy. We had designed and streets around the cars and for the cars. Now they have to be released. It's a beautiful challenge for PIARC, for the Road Global Association, and I want to thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brotto, for your insightful presentation. And ladies
Merci beaucoup, mesdames et messieurs. C'est la fin de notre séance des présentations magistrales pour la journée. Vous serez tous d'accord pour dire que nous avons écouté 3 présentations très différentes, mais toutes très intéressantes. Et j'espère que vous les avez trouvées très passionnantes. Nous reviendrons demain pour la cérémonie de clôture du Congrès mondial qui commencera à midi pile. Donc, n'oubliez pas le gala de ce soir qui va commencer à 19 h dans la salle 8. Donc, mesdames et messieurs, de votre attention et je vous souhaite un très bel après-midi. Merci beaucoup.